Ready? Okay. All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Monday, April 14th, 2025. I've got a little after 7 o'clock, so we will go ahead and call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. We will start first with items from the Senior Director of Operations. Good evening, Director. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. I think I'm supposed to start with 8:05, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And I'm going to apologize in advance because you get me for the whole program this evening. So if you don't like hearing my voice, tonight's not the night. But first on the agenda here is our 825, our monthly 825 update. I do have Chief with me because today we're going to focus on some of the components of the police department itself. It's a little bit longer of a presentation. I've been asked some questions recently that we would like to discuss. So the first portion of the presentation here is largely the same as we've been seeing for the last couple months, I guess, since January or so. But basically, the March update, February I would say was a relatively slow month on the construction side. I think that from a weather and just the end of winter kind of standpoint, Chief and I had walked through the building a little bit, and we'd said, looked at each other, and we were like, how come we're not making as much progress as we were making in previous months? But I think that what we really saw in March was the pace pick back up and see good progress overall on the building itself. So some of the things that we've seen as far as accomplishments for March, all utility work on the site itself, so water, sanitary, storm, has all been completed and is in the ground. And it's to the point where they have been doing some grading work on the site itself and really bringing the site up to snuff All the main rooftop units have been installed. They lifted those on a Saturday, a couple 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, at this particular point in time. So the building is basically being readied to be dried in, and ultimately for the HVAC system to be turned on, and the building to be conditioned. I think by the schedule, by the middle to end of May, on that time frame there, the building should actually be conditioned. Or begin to be conditioned. It's not quite dried in yet, but we're getting closer and closer, and we should be dried in here by the end of April. From an interior standpoint, drywall finishing on the second and third floor is continuing. I walked through the building this morning, and that whole north-south wing on the third floor is drywalled, patched, and painted. I was shocked to see actual paint and not just drywall patch up there on the third floor. But that's the level of progress that we're making. Ceiling trays or ceiling grid is beginning to go in up there on the third floor again on that north-south wing, and they should actually begin to make really, really great progress on that particular wing, and then work their way to the PD wing on the third floor, down to the second floor, and ultimately work their way out of the building off the third floor. What we'll see here in a little bit here is a couple of pictures as far as like technology cabinets being constructed. I got some boring pictures in here on like the things that actually make the building work, like electrical switchgear and IT cabinets and those types of components that the building can't function without, but we oftentimes take for granted. The shaft wall, the interior shaft wall is completely reconstructed at this point. That was the issue that we had talked about a few weeks back, where the wall wasn't originally constructed to code, and they needed to do some fixes on the shaft wall itself. The wall actually was largely removed and then rebuilt to code to make sure that the safety and security of the building was maintained. The holding facility continues to progress. I think Chief and I and a few officers are going to walk through later this week, and actually, so the officers can really put the final touches on the holding facility itself, to the point where what's the height of these interior walls going to be, where like mug shots are taken or fingerprints are taken or things like that. How does the room, if you would, circulate? And then on the first floor, which is the last floor, as I've already said, the in-wall rough-in and the overhead rough-in continues on the first floor. So a lot of HVAC work, a lot of electrical rough-in, so on and so forth going on the first floor. But again, good progress. These two notes were on the last presentation that I gave, but we believe that we'll be bringing before you folks at the second committee meeting in May, the FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the results of that procurement process, which is currently ongoing. Those RFP responses are due back to MSA, the architect on the project, this coming Friday. And then I received on this past Friday the moving and logistics RFPs that the city published to coincide with furniture and then us ultimately moving into the facility itself. By time we're 61 days complete. By time we're 61% complete. And since the beginning of the project, we've seen 24 days or weather days that have impacted the schedule somewhat. Some pictures that you're looking at. So what we're actually looking at on the left side of the screen here, one of the things that they did just last week was they poured that whole entire first floor. So basically, I'm standing in Mayor's Court on the left, on the picture on the left, and then the picture on the right, I'm actually standing in City Council chambers.
Sorry. Jeremy.
I'm standing in City Council chambers on the picture on the right, and I'm looking towards the dais. If you see this hole, if you would, inside of that is where the actual dais would end up being constructed. And there'll be a final pour in that particular area in the coming days and weeks. This is evidence that there is paint up here on the third floor. These are the three enclaves, or those library study rooms up on the third floor that face the westerly direction out of the building. Some boring stuff, but again, some important stuff on the rooftop. These are two of the rooftop units that have been placed up on the main building, on the main structure itself. Those obviously provide heat and air conditioning to the building itself. There are 5 units in total up on the roof, where there was, in the original building, there was only 3. Middle picture here, this is one of the IT closets that happens to be up on the third floor as well. You can see the ladder trays being constructed inside of there. This is the trays that will hold all of the technology cabling and such. When me and the IT folks were in this room on just past Wednesday, all of those cablings for that need to land in this room are there, which means they're also in the proper place on the opposite side in the various different open offices and such. And this far picture on the left here this is the new electrical switch gear that's placed throughout the building as well. Not throughout the building, but in the main electrical room. And again, this was one of the upgrades because of the renovation and expansion project itself. As we continue to move, should be a familiar slide to us, but basically the top table here is just a summary of the overall contract. So construction contract number 1, GMP 1, GMP 2, and then the total of $59,627,000 is the total construction project. And then it's currently invoiced at 46%, or $27.5 million so far to date. That would be through the March, that is through the February pay app, not through the March pay app yet. The March pay app hasn't been approved at this particular moment. The bottom box there is the allowances and contingencies that are on the project. The percentages in parentheses are where we are as far as monies spent in those particular boxes. And overall, we've spent about $867,000 in approved contingencies and allowance monies, and/or 26% of the total $4.7 million in allowance and contingencies. Moving on a little bit, one of the things that I believe Mr. Schnetzer had asked us for was if we can just kind of revisit some of the base assumptions that we made way back when at this particular point in time. So the next couple slides kind of walk us through that. What you're looking at here on the screen is the construction cost. So again, broken out into GMP 1 and GMP 2. And then in each one of these contracts, basically the first cover letter detailed all of the charges that were below this particular, below the construction cost line for allowances, construction contingencies, owner contingencies, fees for the construction managers, insurance, bonding, the community activity taxes, the CAT tax. And both of those contracts add up to this $59,627,000, which is the same number that you saw on the previous slide. As we walk through the next slide here, the project summary, right? Because the slide before is construction only. So contracts with Alfred, if you would. This is the summary slide of the entire project itself. So we bought the building for $8.5 million. $875 million, there's $250,000 in a down payment. That's someplace else. We'll get to that on the next slide. Design and pre-construction costs. The construction cost number is the same number that's on the previous slide. FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, that $1.6 million. And then you remember at budget time that we added from a health and wellness refund that needed to go towards health and wellness of staff, that $500,000 to the FF&E budget. And that was for things that weren't necessarily programmed, like height adjustable desks and those things for the entire building profile as opposed to only in select locations. Third-party and then any other things that we've purchased outside of this project, not outside of the project, but for the project, but had to finance in a variety of other ways. Third-party inspections, right? So who does the strength testing on steel and on concrete and those things? A lot of this is just the quote-unquote cost of doing business. Builder's risk insurance, permitting and inspections, the easement with AEP in order for us to egress out onto their particular property, and then the 2-acre land acquisition off the backside of 825 is also listed on this chart here. The last slide as it relates to the financing is the financing of the project itself. So we start with prior year cash. This was cash that was identified in 2021, 2022 when we first started talking about facilities that the finance department had assembled in order to begin to do some work. When we hired, you guys remember hiring MCP as an example to come in and improve our budgets and our space programming before we even purchased 825. That was some of this $3.3 million was used in order to pay them. The down payment on the building came out of these monies. Any of the legal work that came into purchasing the building, so on and so forth, would have come out of this particular pot. And then as we work down this list here, the building purchase itself, you'll see my note there that those were rolled into bond issuance number 1. And then my note on bond issuance number 1 of that $18.2 million, that it is less. I know you guys are going to think this is by mistake, but it is not. It is less the 2012 bond refund. That was an action that we had taken at the time in which we did this particular issuance. Mr. Schnetzer can probably tell us the exact amount. That amount escapes me. But then it is also less the building purchase itself. And the only reason I lessened the building purchase was because I was counting it above and I wanted to show it. Bond issuance number 2 was in June. And that was for the balance and the makeup of the project itself. And that request was for the $33.5 million. And then you guys will remember that we brought $10 million in cash to the project itself, $3 million from capital and $7 million from the general fund. And those are things that are being used for the FF&E budget and the contingency budgets as they relate for the project. Then at that point, any contingency won't go back to the bond issuance. It'll end up going back to the cash allotment, any unspent monies at the end of the project. Questions on what I've been through so far?
Thank you, Director. Mr. Schnetzer, I know you had a question.
Thank you so much, Director. Just real quick, on the bottom 2 items of this slide, the $3 million and the $7 million, can you just go over real quick why those were cash funded and not bond funded? My understanding is FF&E was, because it's sort of shorter life cycle, it doesn't neatly fit into the 28-year final term on the bonds. And then I think you might have even touched on the $7 million portion, but just to kind of put those 2 together. Yeah,
so both of those numbers, we felt that was in talking with Joanne, we felt that the $10 million was a good number to be able to bring with us, in part because of the $4.7 million in contingency that we were carrying on the project. There's about that $1.6 million in FF&E. excuse me, and then some cash for some other, just to make it an even 10, basically, I think is what Joanne was thinking as it related to what the bond issuance would be for and then what the repayment was. The reason why FF&E is not a qualified expenditure for the bonds because it doesn't have a 30-year, anything has to have a 28-year life cycle, has to live at least up to the life of the bond. So furniture, fixtures, and equipment generally doesn't do those things, and therefore couldn't be capitalized on the bond side itself.
And then, isn't it true that the contingency may or may not be an expense that is incurred, and therefore, instead of borrowing those funds and being on the hook for 28 years over the life of the bonds, in the event that these monies don't get spent, it now gets returned to cash?
Correct.
Instead
Yes.
of basically wasting money and paying interest on it.
And same thing on this allowance line as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir.
Any other questions or comments from my colleagues so far? All right, thank you, Director. Please continue.
So one of the things I know that we've had conversations on, and I believe we had a lengthier conversation as it related to the proposed covered walkway for the entryway into the senior center, the senior center portion. If you see this upper portion of the drawing, this is where we're focused on, and we'll get to what some of those items and objects are. You'll notice a couple colorings inside of the parking lot itself. The darker blue in the parking lots that I'm highlighting now, those are all handicap parking spaces for the facility itself. The facility has around 350, 360 parking spaces, which says, the ADA says that you should have 8 handicap parking spaces for a facility of this size. There are 17 handicap parking spaces spread throughout the site in this particular instance. Any of the lighter blue areas here that I'm highlighting now, these are the limited mobility parking spaces that we've discussed. We've discussed these with the seniors, the senior membership. And these basically, it is on an unenforceable parking spot. So if me as an able-bodied person was to park in there, I'm not going to be ticketed or towed or anything like that. But it is a courtesy or a call out, if you would, that folks with limited mobility have the ability to park closer to the building than able-bodied folks like myself. We did take a couple that were in the front of the building and move them to the back of the building, in part because actually they're closer to the building than the ones in the front. There are 21 total largely split in half between the front of the building and the back of the building. One of the things that we've talked about is, again, highlighting the particular area in the front is the covered walkway. Some of the things that we've gone back, we've talked with the architect, with Helford, about what is the rough order of magnitude or the ROM to construct the covered walkway. It's not a pergola, help me out, Chief, what's the word? Not a portico, thank you. I don't know how that word just escaped me just now. Probably because I'm thinking about building a pergola in my backyard. But the rough order of magnitude in order to design and construct the covered walkway is anywhere from $300,000 to $350,000. The distance that we're talking is about 23 feet, which needs to be covered. And if you guys would imagine where Mr. Weaver is sitting to the front row of chairs, that's about 23 feet. And that basically takes into consideration from where my highlight is now out to the curb line, where my nicely colored or rusty colored orange cars are now parked in the front. Chief's going to talk to the public safety considerations here in a second, but we also took into consideration a few other things. Staff has been monitoring the existing portico that's over at the senior center, and they would estimate anywhere between 2 to 4 drop-offs a week inside of the portico currently. Honestly, it's probably used more as a parking space than it is actually as a drop-off, a standing location. We have had member conversations with, not a lot of people, but the general consensus with the folks that we have talked to is that this is an issue for a few members, but not the membership at large. We've looked at comparable facilities that have been built very recently or some that are even under construction now. Westerville, Upper Arlington, which has just opened last week, and Hilliard, which is due to open later in the year, none of which have a covered walkway and/or a covered portico for folks to walk into. And in some instances, Upper Arlington, as an example, membership largely parks in a garage, and it's a lengthier walk in order to get to the front door. And then in Westerville, there's probably about 30 to 35 feet of space that needs to be traversed in order to get undercover. Again, cost was something that was also taken into consideration. And then the overall aesthetic, the architect, they have to do some design refinement if we choose to move forward. But they also feel that the covered walkway off of the front of the building is going to look like an afterthought and not be emblematic of the building itself, which could or could not be a consideration for us. The other thing that also came up was, and one of the things we talked about last time was, are there any alternative approaches? But is there the ability to create a natural canopy by placing 2 or 3 or 4 nicely appropriated trees that actually create that covered walkway as opposed to creating something that's more artificial. So that's something that we're currently considered. I'll let Chief talk to the public safety considerations on the covered walk.
Just a little bit in terms of scale, and Kevin and I were talking about this earlier in the day, but the building as it appears from the street is a very large presence. However, though, as you get closer into the actual structure itself, it shrinks in scale. I think it's a combination of the curtain wall feature and just the general layout, but as you approach it, distances get much tighter. And it's a multi-story building, so we have to have consideration for firefighting apparatus. We frequently have squads to our EMS and also first responder engines when we have any type of medical situation, if it's a detainee, if somebody walks into our lobby. So we're very cognizant of those vehicles. But back to the structure itself, it's multi-story, so that means larger fire apparatus. The curvature of that roadway in front of the main entrance to where the proposed walkway is a very short run. In other words, trying to get a 60-foot ladder truck into that very confined space is challenging, if not impossible. If there are vehicles that are standing along the front portion of the building. Also, a little bit just for reference, if you look at the gray portion that's kind of highlighted, that's where one of the fire hydrants that has connectivity into the building is located, right there in that gray portion, kind of on the bottom edge of that, right where the cursor is. So in trying to look at it from a public safety standpoint, that very short run, trying to accommodate any type of standing of vehicles is really not feasible. With our current building and the senior center and the overhang, that's off the travelway, and people have been conditioned over the years to pull. It's out of the main thoroughfare. It's not a travelway. This is definitely a travelway that is being constructed, and also a main point of circulation around the building. But yeah, in terms of the environmental factors of what we have today, it is true that area is used predominantly for parking, for covered parking, as opposed to a pull-through and a drop-off.
We'll pause there.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Chief, for addressing that. I know I, as well as several of my colleagues up here, had reached out and spoken with you about the issue. So I do appreciate not only the follow-up, but for taking a look at possible alternatives to find the best possible solution. So thank you for doing that. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Mr. Schnetzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the information here. Can you guys speak maybe a little bit to the cost? I mean, just back of the napkin math, it's like $15,000 per linear foot. It seems excessive.
Yeah.
Like, what's the main driver there for?
The main driver there is that it is, it's not part of the original plan, in large part. I think that that's added probably significantly to the cost of it. The cost of the steel that needs to be purchased in order to erect it. A lot of folks don't necessarily know what's going on with steel right now. So is it going to see a 25% increase? I think that those types of things are baked in there. We need to place 4 footings in this particular area in order to support the structure itself, and then there's 2 bollards that go out front, the electric that's in the roof itself. And yeah, what I've learned throughout this particular project, and obviously, you know, if we speak the word electric, and I'm sorry, it just cost us about $10,000 because I simply said the word. That's the reality in which I think that we're dealing with some of these things. I think that the initial estimate that came in, we always said multiple hundreds of thousands, but when they gave me the number between 3 and 350, I was a little bit shocked myself. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Padova?
Thank you. Chief, you said, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. Is the issue, like the space is tight, is the issue that if there is a canopy going out, that would be in the way, or that because there is a canopy, it would, people would be dropping off and cars would be in the way? I just want to make sure I understand what exactly is.
I think it's multiple factors. One, that what's illustrated on the map here is 2 standard car length vehicles, approximately 22 feet. There's less than 40 feet from that southern portion, if it's oriented north and south, the southern portion of that first vehicle to the apex of the curve. So trying to get any type of large frame vehicle around, if there are vehicles that are stopped, and that is impossible based on that short run. I think there was some discussion of, you know, is this going to be a true overhang, which is again not feasible with how the site is designed. So it would stop at the sidewalk if the decision were to move forward to explore it further. But again, it's mostly that circulation, that is a throughway, and even standing, stopping, you know, looking at driver behavior, somebody's stopping for a period of time, they're not just stop and go. So it does present a number of challenges.
The other note that I would make on that is that the second orange car, or the car that's further or closer to Tech Center, is never going to be where it is. It's always going to be behind that. It's always going to be behind that car. The reason why I drew the car where I drew it was because this here is where is the potential drop-off lane as it would stand, and that's what's being constructed, right? So that's where cars want to be. They really don't want a car back here because of the curve itself. And then the proximity to the pedestrian movement back into the main portion of the site where I'm highlighting now.
One more. And so you said that you guys have been kind of monitoring with the senior center how much this is used currently. Are there scenarios where there are like vans or buses that are like dropping off groups of people, or is it mainly just like a single person getting dropped off, like a husband dropping someone off and then going and parking? Or have you guys monitored
If they're going on
that
a day trip, they'll,
specifically?
yeah, they're not mounted. The 2 to 4 drop-offs is for a single passenger drop-off. It's not for the van pulling up and going on the day trip. That would be over at the existing senior center, the logical place to load passengers where you weren't loading them in a parking lot, where cars could potentially be coming in. You know, we would load in this particular area, but we're not loading under covered walkway. We're just loading under, we're just loading under, you know, regular condition.
And I'm sorry, let me clarify because I think I was saying something else, but I know that there are a lot of like assisted living places where they have vans and they'll take people out to different places for the day. What I was asking is that happening at our senior center? Do we have relationships with other like assisted living places where they're dropping off a van full of people that might be in wheelchairs and things like that?
We do have partnerships with assisted living. There are times where we'll have special events where they'll either sponsor the event and provide the meal, and also bring residents over to enjoy the event, whatever it may be. So yes, that is something that we do.
Okay. And is that frequent? Like, do you think that this will be a barrier for people doing that?
There's appropriate access into the facility, so I don't consider it a barrier.
Okay.
There's always the opportunity to, if it's inclement weather, then we can provide those accommodations to make them comfortable. So I wouldn't consider it a barrier.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Padova. Director, when you and I did the walkthrough together, we had discussed briefly some of the barriers towards if we were to put the covered walkway at the rear of the building towards the special senior center entrance, and that wouldn't be feasible for a variety of reasons, but I think it might be important or be beneficial if you wouldn't mind putting it on the record for us here. Thank you.
So in order to create the similar structure off the back of the building, I have to go about twice the distance that I have to go in order just to create the covered walk itself. So here's sorry, my mouse. Here's the rear member entrance where I'm highlighting now. And they would actually have to get out to this particular location. If you took this 23 feet here and just imagine that in this area, it's about double the amount of space in that particular area. The other biggest challenge off the back of the building itself is where the cursor is now. And stopping and standing in this particular area would be prohibited only because you'd be blocking almost the whole entire travel lane in this particular direction here, north and south, which obviously becomes very problematic to the flow of traffic throughout the site itself, or the back side of the site itself.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions or comments so far? Mrs. Padova.
Sorry, one more on that. I believe that you said, correct me if I'm wrong, but there would be some sort of overhang back there for someone trying to like find because they have
Find
to
their
badge
fob.
in that,
Yeah.
right?
Correct. We've asked them, we've asked the architects to put about a 3 or 4 foot overhang off the back, which gets affixed to the building, attached to the building. So it's obviously a little bit, the building itself is the structure that holds the canopy up or the cover up. And there'll be 3 or 4 feet so that you're not, as you're fumbling maybe for your fob, you're not sitting there getting wet.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Please continue.
So the next portion is the police department specifically, a lot of the training spaces and such. I meant to highlight this slide, but didn't have the opportunity. But I think one of the things that you're going to see here in the next little bit, and Chief's going to take over from here, but you're going to see some of the efficiency in planning throughout the floor plan itself. You're also going to see number 5, allowing for future and expansion space, right? But how we handle some of that. But then also number 6, creating a safe and secure facility. One of the things that we want to keep in mind, he's not going to give an exhaustive presentation about the facility itself, right? But this, one of the things that we've talked about at length is the separation between the public and staff. And that also includes, that's just not safety for that's not just safety for staff, that's also safety for the public, that's safety for the officer that's interacting with those folks, so on and so forth. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief.
So the first slide here is a schematic of the training center, which is the lower level on the west side of the building. Looking at the top left photograph, and the red dot is a view of what's commonly referred to as the observation area, the large windows to the back of the photograph, that those observe directly into the range portion of the building. The bottom left with the green arrow is a view inside the range portion, and then looking down toward the backstop. There on the right side, there's a storage area that allows us to have access to equipment, things like lane dividers and other things that for the efficient operation of the range itself. Then moving up to the top right in the orange photograph, that's looking toward the back wall of the commonly referred to as the simulator room. And then the bottom photograph is looking toward the doorway. Working through the entrance down into the training center portion, there's several other support facilities. There's restrooms down there, but also a fully functional armory and storage area off to right where the cursor is now. Based upon how this entire area is constructed and the HVAC that's required to operate it in an environmentally safe manner, there are a number of doors that maintain positive pressure. So those are placed in actually 3 separate locations in the facility to maintain that positive HVAC pressure that's needed to operate it safely. Just as a note, and on the slide, it does also serve as the storm shelter for the entire building. So the interior corridors and then the stair tower down facilitates all building staff that if we do have a weather event, that they can be securely housed down there for the duration of that weather event. Something none of our facilities currently have. Moving on to the next slide, this is on the continuation of the training center area. Top left, the red photograph, that is the fitness area. I'm sorry, I'm over to the top left is the actual training room, which also doubles as the emergency operations center for all the city staff should we have a major weather event or other situation where we need to bring city staff together to operate an emergency operations center. The red view is kind of looking back toward the central hallway that is where our field services subdivision is located. And then going over to the photograph at the top right, a couple of different views of the fitness center area. Which is also located along a central corridor, and then to the left is the defensive tactics area, commonly referred to as a mat room. A lot of our training, and just in a recent situation a few of our officers were involved in, we quickly learned that when they were applying a tourniquet in a situation, that their fine motor skills under stress and getting that device off of their external carriers, the way it was fastened to their equipment, once you added stress in. So we were able, with this facility, we can simulate a high-stress environment. We can put them on a treadmill. They can go into the defensive tactics area. We can start to work on those things and find those deficiencies in equipment and training, through a real-life simulation as opposed to finding them out on a call for service. So the way this is laid out allows us to do that very seamlessly and effortlessly. Kind of going on, and this area is actually really starting to take shape even within the last couple of days. This is the monument staircase. We frequently refer to it as the monument stair in the plan. This connects all 3 floors of the police headquarters facility. from field services and most of the operational areas and the training areas in the basement and the first floor, up to the second floor, which is where our investigative services subdivision is, and then all the way to the third floor to support services and police administration. One central area that connects the entire building. Just a little bit of history. We've not done a very good job. If you go to other agencies, Westerville, Hilliard, you go to Dublin and some of these police facilities, they do an excellent job of capturing their history. And, you know, they embody the agency, making it more of a family environment. And make no mistake, we try to emphasize that family environment, but we've done a not such a good job in the last few decades in capturing our history. In this particular stairwell, you'll see a rendering. These are plaques that will be dedicated to our retiring officers, our retirees. We also have one officer that died in the line of duty, and we had 2 officers who died in service to the city of Gahanna, and we'll figure a way in that monument stair to honor them as well. So that's a rendering of how those will go up through that central focal point of police headquarters. We really haven't spent a lot of time, and while council and we've all done tours of our existing facilities, it's a little bit, you know, in the past as we've worked through trying to highlight the progress at 825. But this is current conditions over across the street, kind of focusing on the female locker room, 1 stall, 1 shower, 1 sink. You'll see up in the center, you'll see the lockers. You can't open, 2 people cannot open a locker immediately adjacent. There's no bench, there's no changing area. Also combined within that area is in the bottom photo where the sink is also some gear storage. That will actually, for both male and females, those will be moved out of the locker area into a separate area much closer to where they deploy out to their vehicles. So it clears up a lot of clutter, makes it much more organized, but it increases operational efficiency tenfold. If you look on the right side, you'll see construction of the female locker room, also the restroom facilities. And just of note, if you see the ductwork that's hanging down from the ceiling, the locker facilities will actually have clean flowing air, not only into the space through the HVAC system, but also through the lockers. You know, we frequently encounter a lot, you know, where we go from torrential rain to hot and humid conditions. That all has an impact on the clothing and equipment we wear. You know, right now we have very cramped locker facilities without very much space for that equipment to go in, one, but also the addition of this airflow system will allow that equipment to dry much more effectively, reduce mold, and reduce you know, frankly, odor at times when you're sweating in 100-degree heat at Creekside Blues and Jazz. So a lot of good features in the locker room area.
And with that, we can take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? I see Mr. Schnetzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, I know this has come up from time to time when this building was being designed, but just kind of maybe for the record, can you underscore the importance of the hardening of this building? You know, if the Joplin tornado hits Gahanna, public safety is still going to have to operate. And so just anything that, with regard to the design features or anything that is being implemented there to make sure that this thing is still operational in the event that something like that were to happen.
Sure. The entire, as Mr. Schultz has brought up many times, this is actually being constructed, and there were certain design features and and improvements that were made to the existing structure during design and also in construction. But this is truly a hardened public safety facility with storm shelter and all of those components that make it such. What I will say is we've encountered in my many years here situations. We had the derecho come through, I think, in 2006 when that wind came through, because our doors in the PD were, essentially they were storefront doors that were, they weren't hardened. They weren't. I don't even think they were commercial grade at the time. But literally, we had two of our main doorways blow out during the derecho, so the building was unsecured. Windows, having the ability, not to get into too many details in terms of the deficiencies in our current structure, but if we have any type of active event in our lobby, there are serious threats to our staff. We have hollow core doors, nothing more than just plywood in certain areas. This is all being constructed with safety and security in mind. So some things that we talked about the overall design, having standoff distance, having the ability to, from an approach standpoint, having secure parking, it all factors in. But in the police lobby, we actually have two lobbies: a hard lobby and then a soft lobby. So a main entrance for an initial meet and greet. But if we were going to bring someone in to potentially take a police report or interview, then they can go into the soft lobby. We've also constructed a safe room, so if somebody's coming in a crisis situation, they need to be immediately separated. They need to find shelter. They can go into that room, and they're immediately secured with very little effort on behalf of anybody in the building. They can close the door. They're secure. They're safe. So it provides a number of features. I mean, and not only for the police side, but also for city staff.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
You're still on deck, Director Schultz.
Still on deck. I apologize.
Thank you, Chief.
He's not staying for this, I guess not. This is, this is our capital improvement plan, committee of the whole update for April 14th. So the CIP advisory committee met back in March. And one of the first things we went through, and I won't go over this in great detail here, but was the CIP adoption timeline. This is the published timeline as it relates to the CIP and all of the events, I guess, that'll take place from the advisory committee to the draft report being published for you folks, all the way down to when public hearings will be as it relates to the CIP itself, so on and so forth. So as you can see here, as we get into August, August 11th, the 2026 CIP update would be introduced before you folks at Committee of the Whole, with then adoption being asked for around September 2nd for second reading and the second public hearing all at the same time. I will make a note again, as we always do, that the CIP is not the capital budget. But one of the things that we'd like to do this year is for it to be, I guess what I'm going to say is an 85 to 90% capital budget, although you folks won't be taking action on the budget itself. When you guys adopt the CIP, what you would see during budget time is basically just amendments to the CIP, which then change the capital budget itself. So whether or not those were deductions or additions, that's what you guys would end up seeing during capital time. One of the adjustments that you guys asked us to make was to kind of shrink up or shorten up those budget presentations somewhat as we got into October and November. So one of the things that we did was make sure that we're presenting more heavily in August and September about the capital plan and the capital budget as opposed to in October and November during budget time. Questions on the schedule?
Anything? Yes, sir?
So one of the things that we've talked about, that we've been talking about is the maturation or the maturity, if you would, of the CIP itself. Right inside of the document, it says that this document has to mature. We've seen some of that come to fruition last year. We're really still in that same exact cycle of the maturity of the document itself. One of the things that's come up is in the next two slides, one's on project priorities. I just want to review those real quickly, and then the second one is on project phases. And one of the things that we'll talk about in the next slide is the adjustment of those project phases, and in part that's because of the maturation and some issues that we've had. But project priorities are pretty simple, and they've been the same project priorities, if you would, back to the CNA days, right? So a priority one project is an imperative project. It's a project that cannot reasonably be postponed in order to avoid harmful or otherwise unconsiderable undesirable consequences, right? So is it a public safety related item? It's things that impact safety definitely fall into a priority one project. Our fiber backbone, as an example, right? Our fiber backbone connects 400 West Johnstown to the City Hall to 825 Tech Center Drive. It carries that high level of communication needed for public safety purposes. And if that needed repair or expansion for a particular purpose, that would be an example of a priority level one project that we might not be thinking about as far as, maybe shoring up the structure of a bridge or something like that. Priority level two projects are essential in nature. We just kind of walk our way down the list here, but projects that address clearly a demonstrated need or objective, right? These are more of our needs than our wants. Some project priority level two projects are projects that, per my bullets on the right-hand side of the slide, but maybe we're leveraging state or federal funding. One of the projects that we can point out is the Hamilton Road Bridge, where ODOT was creating that separate travel lane for the Big Walnut Trail to eventually traverse 270, right? And then the federal funding or the opportunity, if you would, that comes along with a project like that to take advantage. So Big Walnut Trail would be an example of a priority level two project. Priority level three projects are important, but these are more of our needs. More of our wants, more so than our needs. Projects that benefit the community but may be delayed without detrimental effect to basic services. Priority level three project would be the speed awareness signs, as an example, that we put up last year, right? A small project by the greater magnitude of things, but they have very little impact on. They have tremendous impact on awareness on a particular road itself, but they could be delayed because we can put up a $15 sign, aluminum sign that says the speed limit is 35 miles an hour, as opposed to one that flashes and tells you, you're going too fast. Never tells you you're going too slow, or never tells me I'm going too slow. But capital maintenance is our last category. It's not necessarily a priority, but it is a category of projects, right? And this is the maintenance type projects that we see organized throughout the plan. These things can vary in the amount of allocation that we give them year to year. Street program is a great example. Is there the ability to pare down a street program, or maybe make a street program a little bit heavier in future years from a capital maintenance standpoint. Other things that would be up here in capital maintenance would be streetlight pole painting, as an example. That's technically a capital maintenance project that we do and perform year after year after year, albeit in different areas of the city. And there's a variety of other projects that fit into the capital maintenance category itself. Questions on project priorities real quick?
Anything from my colleagues? Please continue.
So this is where we have some changes. Plan phase was always, the actual narrative inside of the document is only going to change actually very little. But what we've done is we've changed some of the keywords as it relates to some of these four identifiers. And then one of the reasons in which we've done that is to take projects and eliminate some of the confusion that I created when we assign individual disparate years to a project. It definitely implies, not just to you folks, to staff, to the public, that a project is going to kick off in that particular year when that might not be the case, especially the further on down this particular line that we go. These things were referred to as the current phase, so the first 5 years, phase 1, the next 5, phase 2, the 5 after that, so 11 through 15, and then the last 5, 16 through 20. We toyed at the advisory committee meeting to changing these things to short-term, midterm, long-term. But just by nature, the word term kind of implies that time is also associated with them. So we've come up with a different set of words. Are these going to be the final published words? Hopefully, but I'm not 100% sure. But actionable. Actionable are projects that are currently in design and scheduled for some level of construction. We have many of these projects currently underway. We're going to talk about some of these in greater detail here in a couple minutes. But again, these projects, A25 Tech Center Drive is obviously an actionable project. It's in design, it's in construction, it's been budgeted, it's been financed, it's been in multiple capital budgets, so on and so forth. It's moving forward. There's no changing course at that particular point in time. Then the assessment phase. This is where we're really trying to figure out the feasibility of a particular project, and we're really doing assessments to determine if a project is even feasible, right? We have quite a few projects that are in this assessment type phase. One of these, a great example of one of these projects is studying with the county engineer, studying the feasibility of a multi-use trail along Clark State. We've not necessarily committed to do that project. We haven't made it actionable, and meaning we're not in active design. But the county engineer's office is actually studying whether or not the feasibility is there to build a trail along Clark State at some particular point in time. What determines feasibility? I think that depends on the project. But cost obviously is one of the big ones. Everything is feasible if we have a big enough pocketbook, right? But the reality is that there are limited resources, so not everything is feasible. Working our way down the list here, projects that are identified, basically where a project is being considered, but basically as the definition describes here, it's projects that have been identified with feasibility and assessment to commence in out years. Right, so we've identified a thing, we've identified a need, a potential project, it's on a list. These would be more of the items, the CNAs were often referred to as a wish list of projects. This would be a good example of where things are identified on a project sheet, they're on a list, but we're not necessarily making active strides towards those particular projects. And then the last category is visionary type projects. Visionary type projects are projects that, the city of Gahanna wants to build a 100-acre solar farm for 100% renewable resources. I gave that exaggeration as my visionary project on purpose. That would be an example of a visionary project, one that is not necessarily going to get created or constructed in a short period of time. Things can move between these particular categories relatively smoothly, but you guys, we as staff, and then the public, obviously through meetings like this, would be informed as to how things step from phase to phase. The document will be adjusted based on feedback, further conversations with the advisory committee, to include these words as opposed to the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 that's currently in the document. But the intent, okay, and this is what I think the important part of here is the intent is that it remain the same, right? Not necessarily identifying it years 11 through 15. That's not the important part here. The important part here is the fact that we have a project and it's identified. That's the category that I would be in this particular instance, and that it's contained within the CIP itself. And then it has an ability to move up and/or down the list, if you would, depending on the resources that are available for a project. Maybe a project's identified, and maybe the city engineer comes along and he or she says, hey, let's study the feasibility of doing a multi-use trail on Clark State Road. That project would move from identified into the assessment category, and then potentially into the actionable category after the feasibility was determined, and the group, the CIP Advisory Committee, you 7 folks here, would by allocation, basically promote that into the actionable category. A little confusing, it's an awful lot, but again, if you guys were to read the document right now, the actual nomenclature that's in the document now, chapter 4 maybe, chapter 3, is almost 100% the same.
Thank you, Director. We'll pause here and see if there's any questions or comments from my colleagues. Mrs. Jones and then Ms. Bowers.
Yeah, so would that, I guess, take the place of like in the document now where it says like start year? So not taking that so literally and now shifting to this?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so in the if a project is actionable, it'll have a start year associated with it, so 2025. If a project is just identified, it would say identified in that in the start year column. The start year may change. The heading on the start year column may change itself.
And we probably wouldn't see a year anymore. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
We would see. What
You would see a word.
Okay.
Yep.
Ms. Bowers.
Yeah, thank you. I think to piggyback a little bit on Councilwoman Jones's question as well. So if we're allocating funding for assessment to establish feasibility, we've identified the item in the green column. Just because we've identified funding for assessment, does that green light it to move into the actionable category?
No, ma'am. Right? If Clark State Trail, sorry, I'm picking on that project. I probably shouldn't be. It's a $100 million project. It was not going to get into the actionable category unless you guys say it gets into the actionable category, right? But no, it's a reasonable project. It's, a few $100,000 to, maybe do a short section of it or something like that, then it could potentially move into the actionable category. Just because it's identified doesn't necessarily mean that it ultimately gets designed and constructed.
I think we talked a fair amount in the advisory committee about feasibility. And I thought that was a really good discussion. So part of those assessments would help us identify things other than cost in terms of feasibility, like land or location.
Great example, right? We all know that Service Complex is, it's a high priority project. To go to the slide before, but we struggled to find 10 to 12 acres in order to place that particular facility. So therefore, it's still in this assessment category.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, please continue.
So one of the other things that we talked about was the 9 largest capital projects that are currently identified inside of the plan. I'm going to apologize. My next few slides, my next 9 slides, to be concise there, they have the older nomenclature on it with short, mid, and long term. I didn't have the opportunity to go in and adjust those. But what you're looking at on the screen here are, again, the 9 largest projects as it relates to capital investments for the city of Gahanna. You're looking at the range for each one of those projects. In large regard, many of these projects, maybe with the exception of Stigler-Agler 62, the approach and the design, not the design, I want to stay away from that word only because of the actionable category. But we have good information around all of these projects in order for us to determine what the scale and scope of a particular project is. Again, you guys can read the list. One of the things that I would like to point out as it relates to, there should be an asterisk next to the Creekside Garage and Plaza. And we'll get into that in more specifics here in a minute, because there's a portion of that project that is imperative to do, so it's a priority one project, but then there's a portion of that project that I would put in a lower priority, The other note that I'd like to make on this particular slide is West Side utility improvements. This is the often referred to as the West Side Sewer Project, but it's being referred to as utility improvements because there's water and sewer components, water and storm sewer components inside of the $12 to $16 million. Inside of the $12 to $16 million. The other note that you'll see on the slide, the more detailed slide, is this is only phase one of the sanitary improvements. It doesn't include another sum of money after that. Again, these if you were to add up the ranges here, we're talking about total large capital investment between $85 and $105 million in today's monies. So the next 9 slides basically just walk us through each one of these particular projects. Obviously, you guys are going to have the slide deck here, so you guys can study these in a little bit greater detail. I believe that they're presented in the same order that they're presented here. So they all have a description. They all have the CIP phase. One of the things that I'll do before I give the slide deck to Mr. Van Meter tomorrow, I'll go through the slides and I'll correct the CIP phase to be the appropriate phase that we just talked about on the previous slide. All the priorities here are as they appear in the document currently. And then what you'll see down below is the project estimate. And we do have that broken out, design and pre-construction, construction, and then the total project cost. In some instances, you'll see more granular levels of information as we walk through this. And then we're also identifying the source of potential funding for some projects here. You guys just interrupt me when you guys want to ask a question about a particular project. I won't be offended, I promise. But I'm just going to keep walking through here. Big Walnut Trail, some of these have pretty pictures, some of these don't. Again, they all have the information, though, that's necessary on the left-hand side of the slide. We all know the Big Walnut Trail is a 10-plus year project in the making, one that's being made. I already spoke to it a couple minutes ago about the traversing of the I-270 with the bridge project that's going on currently. We also have Link Us funding, which you'll see there at the bottom, sources, capital, TIF, and Link Us dollars that hopefully are Link Us, that is, hopefully committed here in the next few months. That'll hopefully be able to close some of the gap of that 4.35 to that $5.9 million number. Again, you're looking at, you'll see the slide change on the estimate portion where we do require the acquisition of easement. But then you'll also see the design and pre-construction, and then also the construction totals at the same time. Next one is, third one in the list here is the Link to Literacy Trail. Very similar to the Big Walnut Trail, maybe not, it hasn't been around as long as the Big Walnut Trail. But we all know that this trail connects Hamilton Road to Creekside, going through Shaw Park. It's an actionable project. It is considered essential because, again, based on one of my bullets there, we are leveraging, I believe it's NatureWorks monies for the construction of this particular trail. And again, you'll see a very similar project estimates as it relates to the project here for land acquisition, design, pre-construction, and construction. For a total of 2.1 to 2.65 million.
Ms. Bowers.
Yeah, just with this, my understanding, and you just referenced it, is that there's some grant funding associated with this project. What is the value of that grant funding?
It's Ohio Trail funding for $500,000.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I guess I'll ask a follow-up question. Is there a timeline in which that funding needs to be utilized?
Ultimately, the agreement has not initiated, we'll call it the green light, but once we have a signed agreement in hand, then that will project when the construction will be necessary. But the funding is secured, but the start time has not yet.
Thank you.
Please continue.
This is actually a project that's currently covered under facilities. Can make the argument that it's a park and should be under parks projects. But the Creekside Garage and Plaza. This is a project that, as many of you know, FEMA is requiring us to flood-proof and flood mitigate the garage itself. We've been working with Fishbeck over the last few months, I guess, maybe even longer than that. And they've identified the variety of opportunities that we have that go along with this particular project. We have to flood mitigate the garage itself. That means one thing, right? One of the things that they've pointed out to us is that we should, more of maybe a level 2 project or a priority 2 project, waterproof the plaza itself, right? So when the plaza gets to a particular flood level, when it rains hard, so on and so forth, there's actually water penetration that comes through the plaza itself, through the ceiling of the garage, and then the garage becomes wet. Not necessarily a flooding issue, and that doesn't necessarily, FEMA's not requiring us to mitigate that. They want to mitigate flood waters, but that's an opportunity, if you would, right? So what you're looking at here on the screen, it gives you a good description of the project itself. It is in the actionable phase. It's in the actionable phase because it is currently in design. And by definition, it's in the actionable phase. We also know it's given a priority level 1 of imperative. Again, there's that asterisk, though. It's given that asterisk because there's only a portion of the project that is imperative for us to do. You'll also note that under project estimates, there's the asterisk with the garage and trail improvements. Okay, so anything that you see in gray along right in the middle of the picture there, it says mill race. So basically, from the stream bank to the existing across the existing trail to the structure itself. That's the gray portion, and that's covered in the garage. That's covered in the garage flood mitigation numbers. And then the trail improvements, the piece in blue that you're looking at, is also covered in the initial number there. One of the things that the blue portion gets us is ADA accommodation from the lower trail up into the upper plaza through the creation of, let me get my little highlighter I've found is very helpful. Creates a set of switchback ramps that get you from the lower level trail improvement to the upper plaza, and then it also creates a staircase up to the plaza. One of the things with this particular project is that the nature of the plaza itself is in such, it's at a point where it needs some level of investment, right? So the example that I'll give is the railing that's separates the blue area on the picture and the green area of the upper plaza. That railing is in disrepair and should really be replaced, right? But one of the things is are we going to design a feature that no longer requires the railing, or are we going to replace the railing? And those are some of the decisions that are yet to be made. But when you look at the lower plaza, the area in red, the upper plaza, the area in green, so basically the replacement of all of the red brick pavers in that particular area. The streetscape in yellow. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my colors tonight. And then the tabletop that's off of the front. The tabletop is actually considered or priced inside of the streetscape number here. Those are the 4 and/or 5 projects, depending on exactly how you shake it out, that create a total project of $18.9 to $22.3 million to do the whole project. There's obviously in a project like this, you guys just being familiar with the plaza itself, it's hard to do all of this green work without doing any of the red work, right? So you're almost giving up on the red work if you only choose to do the green work now kind of thing. So there's those types of nuances as we work through a project like this.
Ms. Padova.
So Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. When you're talking about like the green work, we'll say, can you be more specific on what exactly that is? That like just all of the small maintenance, or I guess for lack of other reasons, small maintenance like railings? Is that bricks? Is that what all does that include?
That's from street furniture all the way down to the brick paver that you ultimately walk on. That's lighting in that upper green area. That's a variety of furniture type fixtures. I don't know, there was some enhanced, the fireplace, I believe, in this particular area here.
Coverings.
Yeah. Yeah, canopy type coverings, more decorative, artsy type installation above. But then that also waterproofs what I talked about earlier, that also waterproofs the ceiling of the garage, if you would, but then also replaces all of the pavers itself. And
Okay.
it doesn't fix the pavers, it replaces the pavers. So you go from a red brick to a gray brick.
Okay, so we would be talking, like, the garage and trail improvements, you said that is the like, waterproofing that has to be done.
Correct.
And then the lower plaza, upper plaza, and streetscape, those are the, for lack of better words, the maintenance type things to get Creekside looking back to a
No.
polished level?
I want to
No,
just,
no.
that is the complete reconstruction of the Creekside Plaza. That is not the maintenance. That is not general maintenance on the red
Okay,
bricks.
so this would be a complete reconstruction.
Yes, ma'am.
Looking
Correct.
different, not
Yes.
necessarily set up the same way.
Correct. So I think it
Okay.
was where were we at the flea market?
Yes.
We were at the flea market and we socialized, if you would, a couple of draft renderings that Pod had put together for us as it related to really the area, if you were standing on the tabletop here, looking in this general direction here as to what that looked like. So the lower plaza, as an example, that creates an amphitheater type seating. It removes the water wall that's currently there that blocks off the streetscape from the bridge itself or from the lower plaza. So it creates stadium-style seating in this particular area. It moves the stage, creates a splash pad down in the lower area, but then it also shrinks up the overall size of the lagoon itself and makes some adjustments. One of the things that we've been doing is we're at about a 30% level with Pod on the actual design of something. You go, generally speaking, in a project of this scale or scope, you go 30, 60, 90, and then you're at construction documents at that particular point. So we're more at the conceptual style phase of the project. Again, because they're taking all of the opportunity here, and then they're saying, what other opportunities do we have available to us as it relates to the plaza itself?
Okay, so the 18.9 to 22.3 $1 million number here, that would be complete reconstruction,
Correct.
roughly what we saw at Mill Street Market.
Yes, ma'am.
And are we going to see that here in this presentation?
The renderings themselves, no.
Okay, could you send those to us? I know I saw them, but it's been a while, and I'm not sure if all of my colleagues were able to see those at the market.
Yep.
Thank you.
So one of the things I just want to point out here is on the source side. So we got capital and we have TIF. But then I also have a highlighted number there of private investment. And the reason why I have a highlighted number of private investment is that there's utility infrastructure that services the actual buildings that's in the garage that needs moved. There's also other opportunities that we feel that we can seek private investment in order to fund a portion of the project itself. Would it be appropriate for me to say what we applied for on Friday?
We generally.
Generally.
Go ahead.
Generally, we're also seeking other opportunities and know that, similar to the state capital budget, we've sought funding through some federal dollars that they're at least seeking proposals. So we've also submitted application for those recently as well.
Yeah, and I can add on. So for the first time, our U.S. senators have opened up the opportunity to apply for federal funds. So we have one application submitted this past Friday, another one will go in this coming Friday, and then I believe our Congresswoman also has an
I think that
opportunity.
they'll both go Friday.
Oh, okay, I thought she was doing the 21st. Anyway, so 2 more applications will be being submitted.
And that would help offset the required FEMA mitigation, or would that, okay.
That was specifically directed to the flood mitigation work for the garage.
Yeah. The asterisk number that's on the
asterisk
slide.
number, Correct.
Correct.
The garage and trail improvements.
What would the maximum award be for that project? Is there any incentive?
There's no max. It's just, there's no max. It's an earmark and,
It's member-directed spending. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. So all you can do is throw your the line in the, line in the water. Couple more to get through here. West Johnstown transportation improvements. So I know that we have had some conversations where we talked about the improvement of Old Ridenhour, West Johnstown Road in the area of Old Ridenhour and James Road. What Director Comlank has put together is a project that actually improves all of West Johnstown Road from James. My map is a little bit wrong. It actually goes to Goshen. It doesn't actually go to the interchange. And as you can see on here, that's land acquisition, design and pre-construction, and then construction. This project would be coordinated with the West Side Utility Improvements Project and then also the Columbia Gas Project that's also scheduled to come through this particular area in 2026.
Please continue.
West Side Utility Improvements. As you can see here, this is a very detailed slide. It describes the project itself, but then it also breaks out in the construction phase the amount of monies that would be needed in order to do the sanitary, storm, and water components of the project itself. If we're tearing up a whole lot of stuff, we might as well put it back in a fashion that's that makes it better on all three services from all three services standpoint as opposed to just one. I will note that obviously these are utility projects, so these do qualify for the specialized sewer capital, water capital, and stormwater capital funds along with TIF funding as well.
Please continue.
Facility and service, the service and parks garage. Picture that you see on the left is of the existing facility. We own about 10 acres over on just north of Friendship Park where the existing facility is. This project is listed in that short term or that, I've already forgotten my words, the assessment phase, because we need 10 to 12 acres in order to relocate the facility, and it's what I've learned over time is almost impossible to create 10 to 12 acres of land here inside of the city of Gahanna. So that's why that project is still in the short-term phase, because it's been very challenging to find the requisite land. The numbers that you're looking at as far as the project estimates go, that's what we've been seeing as far as land acquisition numbers go with pressures from the Intel project and other pressures here in central Ohio. But anywhere from $150,000 an acre to $250,000 an acre for the 10 acres of land, which gets us to that 1.5 to 2.5 million. And then the design, pre-construction, and construction estimates, those are based on the numbers that actually we've been able to, that Pizzuti, when we did the facility study, had generated, but then we were also able to update those based on some numbers from Elford, our partner over at 825. I think we have two more. The Parks and Recreation, the Aquatics Master Plan. So what you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen is just the conceptual rendering of a new pool. This happens to be at GSP itself. We'll make one note that what you're looking at as far as the total project cost goes, that's for the reconstruction of the aquatics facility at GSP. That does not include the improvements that are also identified inside of the master plan for the Hunters Ridge facility itself. And again, these numbers come directly from the master plan itself and carry that $21 to $26 million price tag along with them. It basically includes the relocation of the competition pool there at the south in this particular area, zero depth entry pool here in the center, things that the community had identified as being desirable at an aquatics facility are included in here, like slides and lazy rivers and those things. But again, this is given a midterm and/or an identified status inside of the plan at this particular point, because now we need to go and determine what is the feasibility of constructing something like this. So the next logical step for this particular the master plan itself would be to move into a planning, assessment, and feasibility type phase.
Mrs. Jones.
So in new terms, this is visionary, or is it, because you said next stage is feasibility, are we in the,
Identified.
okay, we're in identified.
The
Okay.
what I would say is the third one, or is it the fourth one?
Third.
Three. Yes, it's the third one. It's in the identified section.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
And then the last one, the one with the least detail, because I believe there is the least amount of detail, is Stigler-Agler 62. I know that the community has done a variety of works on this particular intersection. But my understanding, and again, I wasn't here, so I'll probably say it probably more flippantly than I mean it, but the community was presented with 8 different designs and kind of went like this, and that's kind of where this project has been. I think this project needs, and we've talked about this with Tom and Paige from the engineering department, but this project needs, well, it needs to be reinvigorated, and we need to understand what the scope of the project is. I do know that as part of the comprehensive transportation and mobility plan, that Burgess and Nyepel is specifically looking at the intersection and what some of the options may be around the intersection. They're also doing that as it relates to some of the findings, if you would, of the transportation and mobility plan, which then ultimately drive what potential solutions we can see in this particular space. It is listed in that identified type category because we really don't even know the scale and scope of what it is that we're talking about at those 2 under 3 intersections. I know there's a lot of thought and idea, but there's not necessarily anything. There's no guiding direction, if you would, as to where we would like to see the intersection go. We know that we'd like to see the intersection get better, safer, more efficient, so on and so forth, but how do we get there is a little bit of an unknown. That's my last slide. So one of the things that we're going to do, so what we have on our plate on the administration side is for us to, and this takes place with all of the directors, the mayor, Director Berry, as it relates to this package, if you would, right? This 9-project package, and what are the strategies in order to fund some of these things. Obviously, you guys all know, we all know that we don't have $100 million sitting around that we can just do it all. So what we're going to do is we're going to have conversations from the administration standpoint. We're going to sit with the CIP Advisory Committee. I'm going to go back to the schedule if I can real quick in June, and we're going to have conversations around what some of those strategies are. One of the strategies that I'll just throw out there right now, and Joanna talked about this, but how do we fund when we have limited resources and limited revenue coming in, how do we fund a project that expands those resources? And Joanne's just very clear, and she knows good strategies on how to do that. But one of the examples not anything that's been decided, but is to do a multiple-year capital budget as opposed to a single-year capital budget, right? So all that means is that you guys would be allocating funds from next year's, well, in today's terms, you would be adopting a 26 capital budget, and if it was a multi-year capital budget, you would be taking revenue projections for 27 and also applying those revenues towards a particular project or two. So there are different strategies that we can employ in order to get projects stood up and financed over time. Again, no decisions being made. I just wanted to throw at least one example out there, so I wasn't talking in the nebulous world of examples. So that work is underway on our side. And then we'll have conversation again in that June CIP Advisory Committee meeting so that we can begin to formulate and make strategic advances towards addressing some of the larger projects that are on this particular list. The other note that I will also make is Academy Park is an example. It's on the list because it's a large project. That project is largely funded in 2025 and will move forward. So, yeah.
All right,
So
thank
with
you.
that, I can take questions.
Thank you, Director. Any questions or comments for Director Schultz on this item? Ms. Padova?
Thank you. So I thank you for all of this. This is a lot of information, and I'm kind of thinking of it as maybe even some of my colleagues, but also the general public who may be watching this. You know, I was on the aquatic steering committee, so that was not new information to me. I saw the concept at Mill Street Market for Creekside, but for people who have not seen those things, not a part of it, will we be coming back to council to present some of these things prior to July, or is that the next time that we're going to be talking about these items?
That is likely the next time we'll talk about some of these items.
Okay.
Unless we need to stand something up quicker, which on this list, I don't believe that there's any of those particular things that need stood up quickly, right? Because they're larger. So we have to come up with that strategy of how is it that some of these things are going to be funded, and that's going to take us a little bit in order to do that. Yep. And the other thing too is that pictures are nice, but sometimes I put that conceptual across the parks, the aquatics master plan on purpose, because I think that in some part, and I'll take responsibility for this, but it goes to Ms. Jones's question about start year, right? We list the start year, and then, well, it's really more of a visionary type project, and should we not be identifying a start year? I'm not saying that any one of these is, but we'd like to eliminate that confusion and start dialing that back. And then sometimes when we show the pretty renderings, people get the wrong idea as to what phase a particular project is in. So we do want to be a little bit careful and responsible, if you would, as to how we let some of that information go before you folks have an opportunity to make some of those funding decisions.
Thank you, and I appreciate the conceptual across the rendering there, as I think that does eliminate some of the confusion on where we are with some of these projects. I think that was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schnetzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Schultz, appreciate the comprehensive overview. You and your staff may already be looking into this, but if not, I would just encourage, treat the West Side sewer project a little bit differently from a funding standpoint. There is at least legally the ability to issue revenue-backed bonds that are secured by those water sewer charges that would be subject to different legal constraints and capabilities. And so to the extent that cash financing that would be, I guess, unfeasible right now, there could be an alternative method if you guys wanted to move quicker. So yes. I won't go any further into the weeds than that because it'll bore everybody to death up here, but nonetheless, it's something that would be worth exploring.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Schnetzer. Oh, Ms. Jones, I'm sorry.
So thank you for the information. So knowing that we're moving away from having that start year, I think when you look at the capital improvement plan on, online, residents see something that has been a hot topic of like the community center. Yes, I know it's an elephant in the room, but now we're moving away from that. So I guess we have those 9 projects. What's the process? And then we talk about the next 9, or, because we don't have that start year now as like an indicator of when
Sure.
the things happen. So like, how do we get from those 9 to the next 9?
So one of the, sorry, I'm trying to get to my list. Where'd it go? One of the things with these 9 projects is that in large regard, each one of these 9 projects could be considered a maintenance project. Sorry, not to confuse us with the word that I tried to replace, right? But each one of these has Academy Park as an example. It has an aged playground that needs to be replaced. It's short on parking as it relates to the accommodation for baseball field, so on and so forth. Big Walnut Trail, we have financing and an opportunity to complete that 10 or 15-year-old project. The Creekside Garage is obviously FEMA required, West Side Sewer, the list kind of goes on, right? So I think one of the things that we need to get a good understanding on is where do the new things, if you would, like a community center, fit into an overall list like this? And how do we identify it? How do we identify it and have it on a list? And then make strides towards it so that we're not ignoring it, but we're also clear maybe that it's also not the highest priority based on some of the other things that the city needs to do. And then it'll move up the chain as appropriate.
Okay, so I think if I'm hearing you, then it goes back to the other grid, important, imperative.
Correct.
So where it falls within there.
The priority. Yeah, and that would be that's the community center is going to be a visionary project because of there's a couple different components there because of the overall cost of the community center itself, and then in part because of the amount of land that's required in order to build it. And then it also is land that needs to be in kind of like the right place, right? It can't go. it can't just be anywhere. So it's a little bit more of a difficult project. But just because something isn't visionary doesn't mean that the very next year it can't continue to move forward and understand the feasibility as climates change, as resources change, as circumstances change. So just because something is down here today doesn't mean that it couldn't be moved up the list, again, because circumstances change.
Okay, and then for radical clarity, community center right now is not even on visionary. It is.
Community center right now is identified inside of the plan. You're looking at a number right now. When we make the adjustments for this go around, when we adopt the plan based on the schedule that was on the page next,
Yeah.
that project will go to a visionary state. Yes.
Right, so it's pre-visionary, right? Am I
sorry?
right? And it's, like, if I think visionary
It's just in
is
vision. Let's
active-
just put it in visionary.
Okay, okay. Okay. We won't create an extra level. Okay, I get what you're saying.
It's in the document. So if it's in the document, it needs to fit into one of those 4 categories. And visionary would be the right place for that project to be.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Anything else for this item? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Director Schultz.
You're not done with me. Sorry.
Not,
Not done with me. I don't know what the next item is.
we will turn now to items from the Department of Engineering. We have a couple items returning for further discussion related to the Wynn Ridge Bridge project. And for this, I'll turn first to the city attorney, I believe, or is,
That's fine with me. Please, Priya.
Thank you. So the Wynn Ridge Bridge project is in conjunction with ODOT. They had sent us a sample resolution for our consideration that was on the original agenda and for first reading. And I had asked that it be coming back to committee. I think there are some procedural concerns that I had about the posture of the legislation being a resolution versus an ordinance. And then a conflict with our prior ordinance that we passed in October and some confusion about what we were actually granting authority to enter into now. So just some very clear understanding. I did have a meeting with ODOT Assistant Chief Counsel today so to get additional clarity with that. So you should have a new attachment as of this afternoon incorporating some changes that they had to the new ordinance. So Rather than resolution, it is my recommendation that this passage be an ordinance amending the prior ordinance and adding additional clarity. There are two separate documents that is attached to the current ordinance. One is a new contract, an LPA contract, and one is an amendment to our original LPA agreement. So those two documents are distinct and separate in their function. And so because of the updated estimates, we needed to amend the prior agreement and then have the new contract be the next actionable item for them to move forward with the project. And then, as it is an ordinance that authorizes a construction project, it would be effective upon signature. But I believe there's a request for a waiver of second reading to ensure that we meet the ODOT deadline, which is April 25th.
All right, thank you, City Attorney. Anything in addition, Director? Okay. Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
Thank you to the city attorney for some additional look at this. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So as a matter of process, both on the agenda for next week,
Yes, so my recommendation would be that the resolution be tabled indefinitely, and then the ordinance move forward for vote. So the motion would be for the resolution to be tabled, a vote on that, and then presentation of the ordinance, a vote on the waiver, and then a vote on the ordinance.
got that, Mr. Clerk? All right.
I'll look to you next week.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you, Director Schultz, thank you, City Attorney, for efforts on this, appreciate it. Okay, next up, we have a request for council action regarding Fishbeck Engineering Services.
Yeah, so on February 26, 2024, the city issued an RFQ for engineering services. It's actually a general RFQ that covers many disciplines over in the engineering department. One of the services, we did a staff aug type contract with Fishbeck for 2024, which expires on May 2nd, 2025. And this was to take care of the services of the departed senior utility engineer. Given current markets, it is a job that we have posted for continuously since that individual left us. And we've been soliciting for a replacement for some time. Obviously, utility engineering is an important discipline, so we'd like to enter into contract with Fishbeck to continue those services. The RFQ is still good, even though it was issued in 2024. It did solicit pricing and qualifications for, I believe, a 2-year period, maybe even a 3-year period, and is still a valid process, competitive process for us to have gone through. So the administration is respectfully requesting an ordinance authorizing the mayor enter into an agreement with Fishbeck to provide utility engineering services, and given the expiration time of the contract itself, we're asking that the legislation be passed with emergency.
All right, thank you, Director. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? So, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe, I apologize if I missed this, but is this the same as the water engineer that we were having difficulty?
The water resources engineer turned into the senior utilities engineer a number of years ago, and this is that particular that same job.
And how long has this been vacant?
No, about a year now. Little. Well, I think in the May timeframe, it'll be about a year. So yeah, the individual that was in that spot actually was a project manager, and they took it wasn't necessarily a promotion, it was more lateral, but they went to work for Parks and Rec in the project manager spot in about that May timeframe, April-May timeframe.
Is there some type of staffing realignment that would help to?
Hiring engineers currently is very difficult. Hiring a utility engineer is even exponentially more difficult than that.
There's a needle in a haystack right now.
Yeah. It's, I mean, the job, literally, it's, if you go on our government jobs, you'll see senior utility engineer posted for, and we've posted a variety of jobs. We've posted senior utility engineer, we've posted utility engineer, we've posted utility project administrator. And all of those are very far and few between.
Would there be any way to offload some of the responsibilities that are being proposed for Fishbeck into some other type of position internally?
No, ma'am. These are truly engineering, utility engineering type services.
They're very specialized.
Yeah, the design of, the review of, those types of disciplines, and there's nobody on staff, there's currently nobody on staff that aligns with those disciplines.
I know that you're, the administration's involved in various regional organizations, CAMA, for example, et cetera. Are you seeing this type of difficulty in other communities?
This job is posted for our neighboring municipalities in the
It's
same
posted
regard.
all over the
It's
state.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you all can kind of understand the heartburn here. I would anticipate.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, this is a significant contract and probably double, if not more, 2.5 times what the position would cost if it were filled internally.
Absolutely. It's not, no, I mean, you need a PE in order to do the job.
Right.
And we don't have, we have,
But I
there's.
mean, if we were able to hire a position.
Oh,
like,
you said
let's say
it
a
filled
se-
internally. Sorry,
Yeah. Hired.
I can't do
here.
I can't do this particular job, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I would anticipate, is the position a C25 right now? Do you know where it's at, that senior utility engineer is?
One of the reasons this was made into a senior utility engineer was so that it had the right class.
Yeah.
It's in the right class.
And is,
It's in the right class. It's in the right class for us. Is it in the right class for senior utility engineers? I mean, if we can't hire somebody at what it is that we're proposing we pay for this particular person, then it's probably, honestly, it's probably not in the right class, but at the same time, based on
the
all
rest of the
things
pay
being equal,
scales.
it's where it needs to be.
Right. You have a senior transportation and mobility engineer, you have a city engineer / director of engineering, and to hire a senior utilities engineer at a rate higher than either one of them are making then rolls into all the other compensations that we're paying. So, it is an effective way. I recognize the heartburn, but it is an effective way for us to cover the need that we have in terms of getting this work done. And we just went through an hour plus of CIP projects that many of them relate specifically to work being done by this position.
if, I would anticipate that we're going to continue to post the
It's
position.
continuously posted.
Yeah.
It's there right now today.
Would we be able to cancel the contract with Fishbeck upon hiring a staff, a
Yeah.
person to fill the role? Okay.
Yep. They'd be onboarded appropriately or responsibly, and those resources would be available to us. But
Yeah.
then we would dissipate their.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not committed to the outlay here.
Okay.
And the way I read the contract is the total amount is an amount not to exceed and that they would bill down from that
Yes, sir.
for actual work performed.
Yes. Like, they have resources here on site. What's listed in the contract, I forget, 2 or 3 days a week. And then when she's not here, it's, we get that monthly invoice and such.
All right. Any other questions or comments on this one? I would just also note the heartburn and want to ensure that the city has the staff that they need. And I'll just be frank, if the issue is remaining competitive with our surrounding communities, I would welcome that conversation.
Appreciate that.
Engineer's office,
Yeah.
please. This is a problem,
No, I
okay?
recognize that it's a problem. I want to, and everybody's fishing for the same people.
It's a
I-
problem,
I-
it's a serious problem.
There's no disagreement. I'm just,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
thank you very much. So nothing further for this item, then requesting an emergency on for 1st and on the 21st, and then consent on the 5th, or regular agenda.
Right, consent's fine.
consent's fine. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have items from council members. Councilmember Padova, I see we have a joint resolution for Herb Week.
Yes, thank you. Apologies that we didn't get this until today, but in front of you, there is a joint proclamation and resolution, a procolution, if you will, that we have teamed up with the mayor and to work together for recognizing Herb Day, or Herb Week, actually. So this language honors the history as the herb capital and also recognizes Jane Bunny Giroux's work in attaining that distinction. We will be presenting this to Director Kappas at Herb Day on May 3rd on the backstage at Creekside. So anyone who is able to join us, please do. The celebration begins at 10 a.m. and we will be presenting this to her just before the celebration. So I would recommend trying to be there by 9:30, probably presenting at around 9:45. So if there are any questions on that one, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mrs. Padova. Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
Is the one that was circulated the one that I had sent to Councilwoman Padova today? Were there any
Yes.
changes that were made?
Yes, that is
Okay,
correct.
super.
There are no
Great,
changes.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your collaboration on that as well, so appreciate it. Consent agenda, okay next week for this one? All right, we're cooking with gas now, folks. Next up. I believe it's also to you, Mrs. Padova.
Yes. So I believe that most of you probably have heard of the paperclip project that is going on at Gahanna Lincoln High School. And many of you probably received emails from some of the students who are involved in this year. For anyone who hasn't heard about it, it's a project that started in 2014 with the goal to collect 6 million paper clips to erect a monument in memory of those killed in the Holocaust. So I will stop there on explaining it because we have invited some of the students in to explain it and talk about it next week. We are still trying to confirm the schedules because with athletics and everything getting finished up here towards the end of the year, but we are pretty sure that on Monday they will be here to speak about the project and give us a little bit more information. And I've put together, or I'm sorry, Clerk Van Meter has put together a certificate of recognition for us to present to them to recognize their work.
Thank you, Ms. Padova, but no need for any legislative action
No.
on this.
Nope, no legislative action on this.
Any questions?
And then-
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to see if there's any questions or comments from our colleagues. All right, seeing none.
And then I also wanted to, piggybacking off of the certificate of recognition, I'm sure many of you have heard that next Monday at 5:30, Grin is going to be doing a ribbon cutting for the new food lockers that they have installed, thanks in part to the community grant funding. So Clerk Van Meter will also be putting together a certificate of recognition for Grin. So if you plan to be at the ribbon cutting, please let either Clerk Van Meter or myself know, and we'll make sure that there's a place on there for your signature as well. And if you want to stop in and sign that, we just won't be meeting together again before next Monday at 5:30 p.m. So if you aren't able to make it but would like to sign the certificate of recognition and are able to stop in at some point between now and next week, then let us know and we can have a place for your signature as well. So anyone that wants to be a part of that, just let us know.
Thank you, Ms. Padova. Appreciate it. All right, last item this evening from council office, we have a liquor control notice regarding Angelina's Pizza. Mr. Clerk, any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a transfer of ownership. Antolino's Pizza. I did reach out to the Division of Police. The division has no objections, so if council has no objections, I'll return the notice that we do not request a hearing.
All right. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, seeing none, please proceed accordingly, Mr. Clerk. Any other business for the committee of the whole this evening? Seeing none, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you. Have a good night.